François Hollande and Mahmoud Abbas vowed to kickstart the stalled Middle East peace process. The French and Palestinian leaders met in Paris against the backdrop of a controversial new settlement initiative in Jerusalem. United Nations observers reached the Syrian village of Al-Kubir 2 days after dozens of residents were massacred there. Meanwhile, the opposition takes the fight to Damascus. And European leaders refuse to play ball. As the Euro 2012 opens in Poland, diplomatic tensions overshadow the football showcase. I'm Nadia Sharbi. Thank you for watching France 24. French leader François Hollande played host to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas at the Élysée Palace this Friday afternoon. Abbas is visiting France for the first time since the change of leadership here, and his trip comes against the backdrop of a heightening tension over the planned expansion of a Jerusalem settlement. It's an initiative the Palestinian Authority is calling on foreign powers, including France, to take action against. While addressing the press after their half-hour meeting, the two men repeated their commitment to push forward with the peace process, and Mahmoud Abbas put forward plans to present his statehood bid to the UN General Assembly. This after a failed attempt at the Security Council, adding that Palestinians are ready to accept a compromise non-member status. Well, our International Affairs editor Annette Young tells us more.
It is interesting what did come out of this press conference with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas admitting for the first time publicly that their bid to obtain statehood via the Security Council had got them nowhere, and now instead they'll be heading back to the General Assembly where they'll be calling apparently for non-member status, which has been granted in the past to countries such as Switzerland and also to the Vatican. With this in mind, François Hollande stressed that as far as the French is concerned, they continue to support the idea that the only way that a Palestinian state should be recognised is via negotiations. But he did go on to say that if negotiations did fail, well then recognition would be obviously something for further discussion. Having said that, it's clear that the French government hasn't changed its position despite the change of a president. At the same time, obviously, there's no chance that these negotiations are going to get up and running when the Israelis continue to expand settlements in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem, as they have announced in the last few hours in this settlement of Gilo.
2 days after the alleged massacre and 1 day after being turned away under gunfire, the UN's unarmed Blue Berets have reached Al-Kubir, a deserted Syrian village in the central province of Hama, where some 78 residents were reportedly massacred on Wednesday. As the monitors investigate claims that civilians, including many children, were shot, stabbed or burned alive by forces loyal to the Assad regime, the Syrian opposition is attempting to take its struggle to the capital, Damascus. First, by calling on the city's middle classes to join in the day's protests under the slogan "Revolutionaries and Traders, hand in hand until victory," but also by targeting security forces there through violence. A bomb attack in a suburb left at least 2 troops dead, tearing a car to shreds and damaging nearby residential buildings, where heavy gunfire has been heard throughout the day inside Damascus. And on the diplomatic front, an increasingly impatient Kofi Annan is warning that Syria is drifting towards full-blown civil war, and he blames the failure of his peace plan primarily on President Bashar al-Assad's government. Let's take a listen to the international peace envoy.
Despite the acceptance of the 6-point plan and the deployment of a courageous mission of United Nations observers to Syria, I must be frank and confirm that the plan is not being implemented.
In other world news, survivors describe a horrific scene after a bomb blast ripped through a Pakistani bus on Friday, killing 19 people, including 7 women and a 7-year-old girl. The attack is the deadliest in months and took place on the outskirts of the northwestern city of Peshawar, which has long been a flashpoint for a local Taliban insurgency that targets not only government officials and security forces, but also ordinary civilians. In Bolivia, meanwhile, at least 16 people, mainly teenage students, were killed late Thursday when a bus careened off a mountain road that's known locally as the Highway of Death. Well, the bus was reportedly en route to a school competition in La Paz, and according to one young survivor, the bus crashed as it tried to overtake another vehicle on what is a very narrow road. Rescuers are still searching for the dead and injured. And a curfew has been imposed this Friday in areas of western Burma after sectarian tensions between Buddhists and Muslims erupted in fresh violence that left at least 4 people dead. Well, this eruption in tensions threatens to overshadow reconciliation efforts that have led to a series of political reforms since almost half a century of military rule ended last year. Now, taking the focus away from the increasingly naked students banging on pots and pans will be a tough challenge for the Canadian Grand Prix organisers as they head into what should have been a sellout event this weekend. The nearly 4 months of nightly protests have dragged down ticket sales for the Formula One race, and threats of more protests already forced the cancellation of Thursday's free opening day event. Well, authorities now fear that the standoff over tuition fees could disrupt the country's crucial festival season. Now, the Euro 2012 has officially kicked off in Warsaw, but it's not the easy festive occasion that many had hoped for. While Poland faces off against Greece on the pitch, another diplomatic game this time is playing out in the stands. The UK, France, Germany and the European Union have all chosen to boycott the event, this in protest against co-host Ukraine and the jailing of its former Prime Minister, Yulia Tymoshenko. And only adding to that volatile mix are also concerns over racism and fan safety. Well, for more on this, we're joined now from Kiev by Amnesty International's Ukraine researcher Max Tucker. Hello, thank you for being with us on France 24. What are Amnesty's main concerns about Ukraine?
What we're currently focused on is widespread police criminality in Ukraine. Police who beat people in order to extract a confession, to extort money, or simply because of the ethnic origin or sexual orientation of the person that they have in custody. We've documented numerous cases of this in a recent report. And obviously with Euro 2012, so many fans coming of different sexual orientations and ethnicities, there is a danger that they might be at risk.
The fans themselves could be at risk, you really think that?
Yes, I think, you know, where the stadiums are, perhaps there'll be less of a risk, because there'll be so many fans, so many police. But fans on their way back to their hotels are quite vulnerable. I mean, it's quite commonplace in Ukraine for policemen to turn over foreigners, people speaking a different language, ask them for their passports, which you need to have in Ukraine, otherwise you can be detained. And if you don't have your passport, you're expected to pay a bribe.
And you've addressed those concerns to the authorities in Ukraine. How have they responded?
The Ukrainian authorities do recognize the problem. They're asserting us that there will be no problem with the fans around Euro 2012, but there are no guarantees in place to do that. At the moment, the criminality in the Ukrainian police force is rife because there is no way of investigating crimes by police, no effective way. It's done by the local prosecutor's office, who work with the police on a daily basis investigating ordinary crimes, and then they're asked to investigate crimes by their friends, their colleagues. They frequently refuse. So there's no real guarantee in place that the fans will be safe.
And how about FIFA? Has the football organisation reacted to your warnings?
Some members of FIFA have spoken to us. I had a meeting with the German Football Association today, and they echo our concerns and say that they are raising them. But UEFA itself has yet to speak out about them.
OK, Max Tucker, thank you very much. You are one of Amnesty International's experts on Ukraine. Thank you for having talked to us here on France 24. And with that, it's time for me to hand you to Cyril Vanier for The World This Week. Cyril.
All right, thank you very much, Nadia Sharbi, the latest edition of World News here on France 24. Well, hello and welcome to The World This Week.